Yeah, he had told me about 120 years. I know that seems crazy, but and he reminded you know, uh, just going through the book of Waking Up Gray, some of the conversations and talking through, and even what the word is, even through him to guide us through it. It's so strange that I was even thinking like just being sick and resting, and when I was younger, it used to be very difficult for me to be. If I was sick, I couldn't acknowledge that I was sick because the upbringing of sickness can, especially if you have a mom who's working a lot and the dad's on the road or whatever, and it's like they would say, "I can't afford for you to be sick." Do you remember those conversations?
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, that mindset, it just kind of, it's very destructive and, self harm, it's very, very harming to self. So I've had to learn to rest and be okay with it. And not like, okay, Lord, I'm going to rest. This is it. I'm going to trust you, even with all the, because it's tax season too, and I'm a tax accountant.
Yeah.
So I'm in the middle of that. And I was like, oh, I can't lose 2 weeks. 1 week was hard enough. And then it was going on to 2. I like 2 weeks. Are you serious, Lord? And yet I'm like, okay, I'm going to let it go. I have to let it go and trust him that it's going to come together. And things slowly are coming together, and there's more clarity, and I've gotten more understanding, and I've gotten a better software too, in the tax world. But so it's like God is definitely, I think for me, it's been dealing with the fear of lack or the fear of not having enough time. And so I think he's really, when you put him first, everything kind of
It does. It
falls in
does.
place. You
Yeah.
start your day with him, and there's still days I don't, but I mean, my goal is to, even if it's a little bit, but my goal is I want to spend at least an hour with him. And I don't do it all the time, but that's, to me, that's when I get filled the most, and I feel like I get the most done.
Yeah.
Like,
you
why
do.
don't I
Isn't
do
that
that?
crazy?
I know. Why don't I do that?
Why
I
don't
know
we
better.
do these things?
I know, and I know better. But I still don't. If I knew better, I would do it more. But anyway, I'm getting there though. He's working me through all that, and I think it's the reason why I don't is because I'm fearful of what I have to do, and like all the things I got to do in this day, and I have to get it done.
And it's hard to shift your focus from that.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like those things pull so hard.
Yes.
Because I mean, a lot of it's necessary.
Yes.
And in the book, she talks about that. There, about distractions, and I think we may have spoken about that a little bit on our last one, which was a little while ago now.
Yeah.
But in the Moving Through Fear chapter, she talks about distractions, and she talks about how when you're trying to pursue God, there will be all these things. These voices get really loud for you to like return to old dead ways, right?
Yeah.
And they're talking kind of about this return to Egypt situation, and it says there is a better country. So they're saying, there's a better thing, coming, and that in reference to the Israelites, these all died in faith, right? Not having received the things promised, but having seen them and greeted them from afar. That is so terrifying to me. I don't know if it is to you. So we can get caught in that space, but that passage, she talks about how it's talking about self-sabotage, they're grumbling in all their ways of being in the desert, and their disobedience, right? They just would not be obedient, would not have faith. And there was tons of grumbling. And so it just put them in this space where they couldn't see what God was trying to do. And so they never got there, and that was withheld from them, even from Moses, right? They never
Mhm.
got to see the promised land, but they knew it was there. They just couldn't get there. And so when I think about these spaces where we're going through adversities, you've been dealing with a lot of health stuff, and
Yeah.
it's been like reoccurring.
Yes.
And I felt like God told me, like, when this first hit, it's been, gosh, how long has that been
couple
now?
years.
Yeah, it's been like 2
Yeah.
years
Yeah.
that this has been an on and off thing. That it was like the enemy was trying to disarm you. Like, he's very specific that was the word. And so we've been in prayer over that, right? Because we've also felt simultaneously that we as a group of women who are walking through this and doing this in community, trying to get to this higher level where God's calling us, that we're just on this precipice where we are, jumping into a new phase and a new chapter of life. And that was our kind of our word that we felt like. I think when right about the time that you joined us, Kim, we all like literally did like a declaration where we jumped forward because we felt that was happening. And it was like, I think maybe in the first night that you were there, within 1 or 2 visits,
remember
I
it,
think.
yeah.
And so we all were feeling that in this year that's just passed. And I think we have accomplished a lot. We've moved forward greatly.
Yes.
And so now in this new year, we're feeling even more of that, and we are walking that out. Part of that is doing this. And that, but everybody has been like slammed with crazy stuff, like really
Lots of
intense
attacks.
car wrecks,
Mhm.
like serious financial struggles, like for multiple people. My family's gone through a ton this past year, just with kid stuff, and now we're having a lot of issues like with the business things and people not doing right by us, and a lot of stuff that's just a lot to you feel like you're sort of clawing through. And it's really easy to get to a place of discouragement and just and also just doubt, I think, that kind of takes the legs out from under you. But she kind of touches on a lot of that stuff in this chapter. And so we were just thinking, it'd be great to share that, because we have been in the trenches a lot. Like a lot of us, I'd say most of us have been dealing through, dealing with some really hard stuff, and that you can come out still having a place of refreshment when you can come together. And doing this, I was like really jazzed coming here today, because I thought, it's like refreshment from all these heavy burdensome things that I've been going through. And I can say, I don't know how, but I've struggled a lot with anxiety, which I've shared, and God has been releasing me from that a lot over time. But I don't know how, but not that I haven't had like some concern, because we're in some pretty intense times right now as a family now. But we're like, I'm okay. Like, I'm more okay than I would ever expect me to be.
Yeah.
So I know that has to be the Lord. And if I walk away, and I also see so many things moving and dead things falling away in this season, a culling of and sifting of things, dead limbs and stuff are being trimmed from our life, from our business, from all kinds of things. And I'm like, man, it sounds weird, but I'm so encouraged to see those places where God is showing up. And my focus has been so different going through this than it's ever been in my life. I mean, in my life.
Wow. Yeah.
I don't even know how to explain it. But I think it's this community and this book and the Lord just meeting me here because I've been willing to listen. And it's been transformative.
And I think the strength of having the community.
Yeah, it's huge.
Because when I look back at even the last few years, I don't think I've ever had this camaraderie with women to the degree. And, I have some good friends from basketball, always be my friend. But I mean, like, just everything that we've been through together. And, we all have.
And we're picking it and carrying it for each other.
Yes.
That's the difference, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there have been times when, like, when we can't meet, and then there's a tendency to be like in a place of isolation.
Mhm.
And if everybody's struggling through things separately, gosh, it's just so much harder to
Yeah.
get
Oh,
through.
horrible.
And then
Yeah.
you meet up and you think, oh my gosh, I feel so much better just having been able to be with people who love me, who love the Lord, that we can lean on each other and we can pray for
Mhm.
each other. I mean, not that you
Mhm.
don't have that, but like physically being in a room with people sometimes matters so
Yes.
much because God shows up in that space.
Yes, he does.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it changes everything. It's like
And-
you're reminded,
yeah.
oh, I'm okay. I'm going to
Yeah.
be okay, you know?
And go ahead, Kim.
And it's like we can throw our faith more towards the country,
Yes, agreed. Yeah.
pull each other along.
Yes.
It's so good. And I was thinking about, we had a new person, because we started up a new group too, a new person, and what a delight.
Yeah, she was awesome.
And felt like that's what's so awesome is when God brings people in your midst,
Mhm.
and when you come together and you're real intentional
Mhm.
about, wanting to be in community, and also knowing that you have stuff you need to face and deal with,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and you're willing to be vulnerable to do that.
Mhm.
And just even the first
Mm.
time that she was there, I felt like she was, oh my gosh, I've shared way too much. You know?
Yeah,
And
she
I'm
kept
like,
saying that.
no, you didn't. You're fine.
We're like,
And-
trust us. You
Yeah.
haven't.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
good.
Yeah. And it's like,
And
I
thank
think,
you for trusting us, like in that moment.
yeah, because it's like, and one of the things, like the wording of trust that she felt, that I think it was the presence of God, that's
Yeah. It
trusting the
is.
Lord above all things.
Yeah. it
That if He's
is.
bringing that place, and even some of the little things that she shared. And what was the one thing she shared about creativity, about anxiety and creativity?
Yeah, she said she was listening. I think it was a podcast from Mel Robbins. Is that
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
That she said that it was impossible to feel anxious when you're in the middle of creating something. And I thought, whoa, I've never heard that
Yeah.
before.
And she did send me a link today with, and Mel Robbins actually got it from Martha Beck.
Oh, okay.
Martha Beck
Ah.
was the one who actually said that, and that's what she was quoting
Okay.
her. So she wanted to correct it.
Oh,
So I
okay.
just wanted to
Cool.
say that.
To
Yeah.
give the
cool.
right credit
Mhm.
where credit
That
was due.
beautifully said. It's like it
Mhm.
made, when I think about through even my years of healing, it's always
Mhm.
been through the arts
Mm-hmm.
that God began that. Even when I was living in the life prostitution,
Mhm.
the art was like the music. I would play guitar or write songs, wrote poetry when I had those little moments, but it kept me going.
Mhm.
So strange. But then after the healing process, like how art, I don't know, does something to the soul.
It does.
You
It brings it open.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. And I think that's been missing in the church.
Mm.
Yeah, I think likely it has, right?
Mhm.
And that I feel like in that space, and it makes sense because that's part of us as image bearers.
Yes.
Um,
Because we make it about duty.
Mhm.
mhm. Yeah. And I think, like, for me, I know when I'm operating in a place of creativity and I'm taking time for that and I'm protecting that space, it is a totally different experience. I feel more like myself,
Mhm.
Mhm.
you know?
Yes.
More
if that-
alive.
more alive for sure. Absolutely. That's the word. You're just like, wow, I feel, because you're connected to the Lord and we're more fully
Yeah.
ourselves when we are
Mhm.
in His fullness. And when you're not doing that, you just don't experience yourself or others in the same way, and just how that spills over into
Mhm.
everybody else in your life. Because
Yeah.
when we are anxious, that is like she's saying, you are
Yeah.
not nice.
No.
Like frequently you
and
are
it
not nice.
irritates other people even.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just not.
It just,
Good.
and I think that's where the Lord, it's like where we're, when you think about the armor of God and how, what your feet are to be
Mhm.
what?
Peace.
Peace.
Shoes of peace.
So when
yeah.
you walk in a room, you're supposed to bring peace,
Yeah.
not anxiousness. So it's like, how do we do that? Well, we do it by
Mhm.
spending that time with Him, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, absolutely.
it's,
Because our cup is empty otherwise, we don't have that to share with people.
yeah.
And inevitably we will go through things. I mean, that's biblical. We know that we will. And
Yeah.
And that's what strengthens us
Yeah.
in the
Yes.
righteousness.
She
Yeah.
says, hope knows that if great trials are avoided, great deeds remain undone.
Mm.
and the possibility of growth into greatness of soul is aborted. It's like, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And I'm living that right now.
Yeah.
And, I've definitely had some breakdown cries this week.
Yeah.
But I've also just been like repeatedly encouraged the next day, you like get yourself up and you dust yourself off and you're like, okay, Lord, show me the ways that you're weaving it all together and show me how it's going to be all right. Because I may not know this second, but I have to hope in him. And I feel like as a couple, my husband and I are like coming together more and we're praying over these situations we're going through. And I'm just like, I feel so certain that he is not only is he going to restore things. I feel like that would be a downgrade. I feel like his goal, the Lord's goal, is that he's taking us to a whole nother level.
He's catapulting you to another level.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is like a surge forward, but it feels really bad right now. But I fully see him working.
That's kind of
so
how I feel
encouraged.
like when you've not experienced that place where he's taking you, you've never experienced before. You don't know what it's like to even get there or how. I remember you just kind of look because the Lord's given me, and we've had many prophetic words spoken over us over the years, and things have happened. But I'm like a lot of change is taken. But it's like this underlying thing that I feel like he's taken us to. I was like, Lord, I do not know. Like, I have no idea what that looks like. I don't know how to process it to think about how to get it. And he's like, just keep my eyes on him.
Yeah.
And watch him do it. And then I got sick. I've been sick for like, I don't think it's going to happen. And he's like, nope, keep your eyes on me.
Yeah.
It's part of the battle, part of the struggle. And in that, it gives you compassion for others who are going through where you're not trying to fix people.
Yeah.
We're not here to fix people.
No.
Yeah.
We're here to lead them to Christ, to take that step closer to Christ, to where he can change and transform, and where you have that ongoing relationship with him, where you're looking to him to lead and guide you in his ways for his kingdom. Like, and the eternal perspective of who am I? Eternally, who am I?
Yeah.
What does that even look like? Because we've been so indoctrinated with so many things that are not even the kingdom of God.
Right.
But he's transforming us and changing us and loving well. And it's like, and even though I'll say the church, I'm part of the church, it's like, we're all part of that. It's like, but never to, like, even when I was sharing with you all about Rosebuds and how we went from one church would open their doors and then it would get closed and then we'd have to go to another church. I worked with inner city kids at a ministry for 9 years with them. And the Lord said to guard me, like, do not let me be your guard. He's my birthright, right? Don't get offended or hurt by it. Trust me. Yeah. I'm working this out. So I wasn't getting offended. I could have looked at all the different churches and God was getting me to know all the different churches in the area and getting to know the pastors and also the people who felt like they had no place in there. So they would come and volunteer to be a part of what we were doing with inner city kids. So it was like giving me that different perspective to say, don't make it about you and trust me to work it through. And even though there's things that he's put in my heart that I believe it's his heart to want to change the church's perspective on things and how they minister to kids, all of that stuff too. But it's not for me to do it or me to correct, right? It's not. And it's like to trust the Lord to work that out and just to love well in that process. And I think that's everything that we're doing, and where fear comes in, where doubt comes in the areas that we're struggling, where people have that, we don't shame people in it, right? We don't, and where the enemy tries to attack us in that, saying, oh, look, we're going to condemn ourselves in it or whatever. No, like the Lord saying no. And I love that because she said the opposite of faith is not doubt.
Yeah.
I love that she said, I was like, wow, that's interesting. So you acknowledge the doubt. So, because like you think of Thomas, one of the disciples, where he doubted.
Right.
And Jesus didn't shame him or condemn him at all.
Yeah.
But it's like,
and she talks about, she also talks about Jacob, right? Wrestling.
Yes.
And she says
intensely.
Yeah,
it was
for
intense.
Sure. She said, God is deeply and intimately involved in our wranglings. It's like wranglings. I love that word. It's very cowboy-esque sounding.
Yes. Very Texas.
And yeah, it is. Texas. So I just love the thought of that. Like he's not offended by our questions, right? That
Not
when
at
we're not
all.
sure, and just being really transparent, I had this, we just had this onslaught of awful things, and I felt really like my world was crumbling in a lot of ways. And I was like kind of like struggling under the weight of everything and trying to like get to my feet. And I'm just like, one thing would fall, like you're like, okay, it's gonna be okay. And then like another thing would fall and you're like, oh, it's gonna be okay, it's gonna be okay. And then it just kept crumbling. And I thought, gosh, Lord, I did just cry out and I said, Lord, why are you allowing this? What am I not seeing? Like, what do I need to see?
Mm-hmm.
And literally, like within a minute or two, I checked back into something. It was a loan application, if I'm being really honest. And there was just a glitch in the system and we had been approved, but it had said we were denied initially.
Wow.
But I cried out to God and I was like, I don't understand. I don't understand it. Why is this happening? I feel like you're going to provide for me, but I'm doubting it in this moment because I can't see a way forward. And I mean, it was like, I thought, oh gosh. And even after I said it, I thought, am I wrong for even questioning God about this? But I mean, he knows our heart. He knows we're just struggling and we
Yeah.
don't understand. We don't
Right.
understand because we can't possibly see the big picture that he sees.
can't.
Right.
But immediately in his grace, he was like, no, actually, I'm catching you in ways you can't imagine.
Yeah.
They're not in free fall,
Mm-hmm.
and that's so huge to know that. But the doubt did come.
What's funny is on my way here to the studio and stuff, the song that came on the radio was a new song that came out recently, and it's about God catching us in the fall, but in how he caught her in the fall. But I can't remember the name of it. But it's a brand new one. So I was listening to the words and I went, gosh, that sounds just like everything we've been going through.
Yeah.
So I'm always look to see what he's speaking through in the music, because
Yeah.
I think that's where everybody kind of is, like with the turmoil going on in our country and then also all over the world. But it's kind of that, that he is there. He's caught us. We might not see it, we might not feel it, but we haven't, he's not going to abandon us.
Yeah.
I get this picture of just all of the shaking that's happening
Mhm.
and how, as we hold on to him in faith, a lot of that shaking isn't touching us. There may be a little
Yes.
bit,
Yeah.
but there's a lot that's
It's
not
not.
touching us.
Yes. Yeah.
And we are safe in him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Yeah.
When she says that we're in a redemptive period of history, and we don't always think about that, but I mean, the Messiah has come. Like we were in that space when he got here, right? So we know that we can anchor ourselves to that regardless of what is happening. Because if you sit on social media and look through, I mean, what a hot mess. It's such a mess.
Yeah.
And just all the conflict that everyone's feeling and all the fear and all the everything. It's just so messy right now because everybody's in a place of doubt. And if they're not anchored to him, I don't know how you find your way out of that.
Doubt, and also a lot of, I'm amazed how many people think they know and they don't have any idea.
Right.
They don't know.
Yes.
There's so much beyond. I mean, like, I don't sit there and say that the things that the thing I do know is Jesus is Lord.
Amen.
Yeah.
And he sent it, and God sent his only son.
Right.
Right. So that to us to know him, to walk with him, for his kingdom to come on this earth as it is in heaven. And it's not going to come through the ways of man. Not at all. And so if we put our trust in any of that, it's going to crumble and fall.
Right.
So it's like, I'm excited for what God, I mean, it's exciting to see. If you read the book of Revelations too, I mean, I see it's all there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we're closer to that place of eternity. Like eternity is real. I mean, it's here.
Yeah.
But that where we will have that insight into understanding that this isn't it.
Yes.
Right.
This is not it. Yeah.
The goal of this space is not to be elevated to a place of celestial ways, right? I mean, that's really not the goal of this place. The goal is it is the wrestling. That's the goal of this place.
Yeah. And I think in some ways that where we'll, because we've been through this battle here on this earth, right? That we'll, when we get through it, you know, when we really come in that place where we meet him face to face in all his glory, we'll never want to go back.
Oh, never.
Yeah.
Like, and I think about that even now, is like how I don't ever want to go back to what I was when I was
Right.
younger. I don't want to ever do that. You know,
Onward and upward.
Yes.
Yeah.
From glory to
Absolutely.
glory. It's like, no way. Once you've tasted and you've known, no, you can't go back, right? But anyway, I hope those who are listening, that you spend time with the Lord and be creative with him, and that you talk to him honestly about your doubts and your fears, and he'll be with you in it.